Hello, everyone, and welcome to another elite episode of the Get Authentic with Marques show. I'm your host, Marques Ogden. On today's episode, we are joined with Mr. Gary Montalvo. But before bringing up Gary to the stage, I want to thank one of our amazing sponsors. Let's thank Legacy Ventures, owned by Mr. Jack Brown. Legacy Ventures helps people get into the franchise business and establish themselves as a business owner and a business CEO and an operator. We want to thank Jack Brown and Legacy Ventures for sponsoring this episode. Now, here he is. Gary, how you doing there, Gary?
I'm doing great, Marcus. Really excited to be here with you. Thank you.
No problem, my friend. First question, Gary. What does the word authentic slash authenticity mean to Gary?
Oh man, I think authenticity is like the gas tank. It's like the gas in the gas tank for me. You know, and it's so interesting. When I first started doing what I do, I remember I used to go up on stage and I would start sweating and I don't have any hair, so the sweat would just start dripping down my forehead. And I was like dressed up in a suit because I was pretending to be like a professional who had it all together. And I would sit there for 40 minutes, 2 hours, however long the workshop was, pretending that I wasn't sweating and pretending that everything was okay. People would get uncomfortable and like walk up to me and give me a towel, like, and go, here, are you, you know? And then I had this moment where I was like, you know what? I'm going to walk up in front of the room and just introduce myself and let people know that I'm nervous. And so I did that. I said, hi, I'm Gary Montalvo, and I'm really nervous right now, and I'm going to start sweating. And I have a towel, and I'm going to power through this. And if it was good enough for Luther Vandross, it was good enough for me. So let's go. And in that moment, it was like that moment of authenticity was probably one of my biggest leadership lessons ever because it taught me. I learned two things. I knew that if I said it, I was going to be free. I knew that. And that's why I did it. But the other thing that I discovered was that the moment I did that, I had the room. They immediately connected with me. They immediately saw a person who was real and immediately saw themselves in my journey and my process.
Inside
And
you, exactly.
yeah, and that has that was magic for me. And the funny thing is, at the time, I think that speaker coaches and leadership coaches, you're talking about 20 years ago, would have told me never do that. Never do that. It kills your credibility, right? Now I think that authenticity is demanded. Is we're in a different environment now. People seek it. But I learned that for me, it was fuel, and it was the biggest way that I could teach people, and the biggest way that I could have them connect with me is by being honest and authentic. And so I think it's such a beautiful distinction in leadership when you embrace it.
You know, Gary, I coach a lot of people. I spoke yesterday for a great mastermind called 57 Lions, Not Sheep. One of my great friends has it. A lot of big wigs in the insurance space, right, Gary? And my talk was called True Authenticity Creates the Bison Mindset. The bison is the only animal, right, Gary, that charges directly into
Into
the
the
eye of the
storm.
storm. The only one. And I was talking to these very successful 7 figure, 8 figure, 9 figure business owners about authenticity is your superpower. And people are craving and looking for people to be real at every corner. You know what I tell people, right? Authenticity is it's something that everybody wants to talk about, but it's also something that nobody wants to talk about
Hmm.
because some people are afraid of it. And again,
Yeah.
right, Gary, I love what you said about you just went up there and again grew up, in Washington, D.C. My dad loved Motown. He loved Stevie Wonder, but his guy was Luther Vandross. That was his guy. And so, of course, it became my guy and all his songs and all his stuff. And I remember he was always sweating on, but that's who he was. And people
Yeah.
absolutely loved him. So again, love this. So Gary, tell us more about a little bit where you're from and then the work you're doing now as a coach or speaker, workshop presenter. Give us more about who is Gary at his core.
Yeah. So, child of immigrants. My parents are Dominican. Moved here. I'm their firstborn. My first career was I grew up in New York City. My first career was as an art director. Actually, I was an art director at Sony Music at the age of 22, and I had a beautiful office on Madison Avenue, overlooking Madison Avenue on the 28th floor, and I got to go to this fancy job every day, and it was like a big deal because I didn't come from a place where that was really accessible.
Mhm.
And I got there and I very quickly realized that I was prepared to design and make things beautiful, but I was not prepared to lead and to navigate the complexities of a big corporation, the politics involved. And my job was to art direct photo shoots. That was part of my responsibility. And in a photo shoot, you have the artist, their manager, whoever shows up in their entourage, that day. My team, hair and makeup stylists, props, photographers, their assistants, the record label team, A&R marketing. So there was like 15, 12, 12 to 15 people in that room that it was my job to get them to agree on a vision and come together. And I was 22. And
I
so
can only
I
imagine.
I was so in over my head. And I did like the whole fake it till you make it thing for about 4 years. And, and I think I was doing fine. I don't think I was doing a bad job, but the experience that I kept having every day was like, oh my God, any minute somebody's going to tap me on the shoulder and tell me you're out of here. I kept switching. I started switching jobs, trying to find the comfort, trying to find the place where I was going to feel like I belong, feel myself. And I did that for most of my 20s. And then I finally realized I'm like, okay, you take yourself wherever you go, right? You take yourself wherever you go. You can't find your power by trying to move the chess pieces and trying to find comfort. You have to find your power from within, regardless of what the circumstances are. And that's when I started my journey into discovering coaching and personal development, and I did that and it changed my life. And I started to see some of the patterns that were working me and the patterns that were really influencing me, and the stories that I was telling myself, and then the tools to dismantle those stories. And after doing that for a while, I got that call where I said, you know what? This is what I want to do. Like I started to get that bug where it was just like I could have a conversation with somebody and the trajectory of their life could change. Okay, sign me up. Sign me up. I want to do this forever. So I started out as a life coach first and then quickly realized that's a little whiny for me. I don't want to talk about feelings. I want to coach people that are up to stuff. I want to coach people that are like got big games. Like I don't want to process, And so then I went through, oh my God, I'm an empowerment coach. And then I'm a leadership coach. And eventually, as I learned to make my business work, I became really passionate about working with entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are, so I think I read the last statistic I read, it was 10% of the population in the US are actually entrepreneurs. So 1 out of 10, so entrepreneurs are the badasses. They're the ones that are taking the risk. They're ones that are putting themselves out there. They're leaders. And so when I work with entrepreneurs, there's just a massive ripple effect that I love. There's a way that, and it's a journey that can be lonely. It's a journey that is the best personal development you're gonna get. you know, you got to deal with yourself and challenge yourself at every level. And the moment you climb one step, you find yourself at the beginning of the next one. So I help them navigate those steps now. I really help entrepreneurs step into their self leadership, because I really believe that self leadership is the thing that gets you through those difficult moments. Your ability to lead yourself is the thing that really has you overcome. And as your business grows, those steps get bigger, right? They become more challenging. It's like when you cross 6 figures and 7 figures, you start to have 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figure problems. And those are more expensive, more complicated, have more moving pieces, require more of you. And so I really support people in bringing leadership to those areas in life.
This is interesting. I love this, Gary. So, a couple things I took note of. Number one, you talked about how when you were young and you got into the role of your career. You were a little bit in over your head, but you just kept grinding, kept getting after it every day, and just kept being positive, and you kept showing up, which was awesome. That's phenomenal. Then you talked about how you wanted to work with people and you started doing life coaching, which didn't really fit you. Then you went to empowerment, then you went to this, and now you're doing business coaching with entrepreneurs. And I love that. Before we get into systems, because that's something I actually spoke on this yesterday at the mastermind, people loved it because if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're starting out, if you're going to work with somebody like Gary or myself or whomever, if they don't tell you about the importance of systems, then you know something's up. And Gary was exactly what I'm talking about. So, Gary, before we get to that, what do you think, other than being, of course, you said a badass, right? What do you think are three, you can call them like, attributes that real gritty entrepreneurs have to be in that 10%? Because again, that is a very, and again, it sounds about right. And it's a very low number in society that only 10% of us decide to make that jump into being an entrepreneur. So, from your perspective, first question is what three main attributes do you think or see successful entrepreneurs have?
So the first one is you have the ability to cast visions, and the visions don't necessarily fit into the box, right? There's just a way that what you're looking to build isn't, and I don't mean you have to be like the most innovative thing, but there's just a way that what you're looking to build doesn't necessarily build. I started coaching because I mean, now companies have coaches in within them, but when I started to do this, that wasn't a thing. Like these positions didn't exist within company environments. So the work that I wanted to do with people was outside of the box, right? It was outside of the norm in some way. And I think that people that entrepreneurs do that, right? Like there's a way that the vision they want is fits outside of the norm, even if the norm is just the patterns that you were taught for yourself and your life and what's possible. I think the other ability that makes entrepreneurs it's successful is the ability to integrate lessons and the self-awareness that comes with that. So what do I mean? Most people try to walk around trying to avoid failure. But a successful entrepreneur understands that failure is actually acupuncture, that it's actually priming you, that it's actually a lesson that you needed to learn in order to elevate, in order to bring this to the next level. And so there's a way that you have to get really comfortable with failing and but not just failing, integrating the lessons from that failure, right? Pausing and saying, okay, what worked about this? What didn't work about this? What can I learn from this and bring to the next time, right? What was the gift in this failure? What was the innovation opportunity in this moment? A lot of the biggest innovations that we've had have come from that, right? I think with that famous Thomas Edison quote that it took like 30,000 tries to build the light bulb, and he just said, I learned 30,000 ways not to do it. So that I think is also a key distinction. And I think the other one for me is that that there's some way that you distinguish yourself as a leader. Now, this can be kind of tricky because the ego can play all kinds of games on you when you bring that word. And a lot of us think of leadership as like out there and you managing other people or leading other people, but there's a way that what I'm talking about is how you lead yourself. That there's a way that you're willing to bring personal self leadership to the situations. What does that mean? You're able to have uncomfortable conversations with yourself. You're able to hold yourself accountable. You're able to push yourself in the ways that you need to. You're able to get yourself the support you need. You're able to recognize when you don't know something or when somebody has a strength that you don't have, and you can humble yourself and learn from that person and bring those lessons. Like there's just a way that leadership is the thing that moves you through those growth moments. And we think that leadership is like the hero mountain guy going like, "Oh, I did it." It's like, no, 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 no. Leadership is the moments when you're like doubting and you're not sure, and you still move forward and you still seek support and you still take action. So those, I think, the three things that I would say, the ways that I would answer that question.
I love that, Gary. And ladies and gentlemen, as you hear him talk about Thomas Edison, here's a question for the audience, right? How many times did Abraham Lincoln lose the primary election trying to run for president? How many times? Eight. 8 times, right? How many people turned down Dr. Seuss before they published Cat in the Hat? If I'm not mistaken, I think it was 158 publishers turned him down. 158, and then 159 said yes. Now we have one of the most famous books of all time, and probably will be forever, in Cat in the Hat, right? And so the point I'm making is that anybody that has achieved anything has had to go through failure, lessons of it. Like Gary said, and I tell people this all the time: knowledge is power. But applying knowledge is life changing. You have to apply the knowledge that you learn
Yes.
from the lessons or the failures that you've had so you don't do them again. I tell people all the time, hire me so you don't end up like the 2013 version of me: bankrupt, broke, no money, almost homeless, lost his home, lost it all. And again, I can tell you right now, Gary, I lost everything I own because of two things: ego and lack of systems, right? We didn't have that. And it's funny, right, Gary? In our company now, the last like 3.5 months, we've been working hard on building systems. But boy, it's a pain. And boy, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of frustration. And as Gary said so eloquently, it's a lot of moving parts, a whole lot. But if you can get them set up, it is a beautiful thing. Gary, please talk to our entrepreneurs and recognize this, Gary: 71% of our audience are entrepreneurs. 71%. Please speak to them right now about how important it is to set up systems.
So anything that you do repeatedly in your business should be systemized, right? Anything that is done repeatedly, that different people have to do, should have a system, or at a minimum a documented process for how you do that. Here's the bottom line. Especially, well, let me say this first. What happens if you don't, especially when you're in the solopreneur starting out phase, is that every time you have to do that system, you'll start to do it differently. And you'll start to go, "Oh, I don't have as much time, so let me cut this corner." Or, "Oh, there's a new AI tool, let me do it this way." So every time you go do that thing, you're kind of messing with it. And it's okay to hack something and work it out, but then you have to land the plane and systemize it, and write the process. You can't scale otherwise. You can't test otherwise. If you're doing it differently every time, you can't test it out. You can't delegate it when it comes time for you to hire a team, for you to bring in support. Even if the support is going to be asking your wife or your partner or your kid to do something for you, if you have to explain it and do it, it's you're gonna say have the experience of like, it's just easier for me to do it myself. So I'm a big fan of creating like Google Docs, or this is how I do it. There's a lot of AI tools now that would actually do this and support you with. I also record Zoom videos, for my processes, and I'll say, here's how I do it. And I have a library of Zoom videos. So whenever it's time for me to train a new hire or an assistant VA, I go, here, watch this and let me know what questions you have. And that it systemizes my training, right? It systemizes the way that I actually teach others to do my processes. So here's the other thing that I'll say. Setting up systems also allows you to stop energy leaks. when you don't have systems, there's a way that your brain is always trying to figure out how we do this or figure out this or, or how are we going to do it this time or how long does this take and so it's subtle because it's just like we're always used to chatter in our heads. But the impact of that is that you're leaking energy. You're actually having your brain focus resources on trying to figure out things that you can actually systemize and not have the answer and the question out there anymore. Anything that there's a question about, your brain's gonna just be working in the background trying to solve and answer that question. So it's the biggest way to stop energy leaks and just like create certainty and clarity for your business. I'm a huge fan of it, and it's one of the number one pitfalls that especially people in the startup entrepreneur phase where there's just like one or two teams, two or three people make. You don't systemize. You don't take the time to systemize. That's a great question, Marcus.
You know what, Gary? That's a fantastic response because, ladies and gentlemen, I have an acronym that I got from my great friend and client, Coach Kitchen, for system. Okay. Save yourself stress, time, energy, money. Save yourself stress, time, energy, money. Ladies and gentlemen, when a system is set up correctly, my goodness, it will streamline your business. It will automate your business. Put time back into your pocket. It'll allow you to control the 4 C's: calendar, clock, communication, consistency. That's what it comes down to. But at the end of the day, you have to be the one that puts in the effort. You have to be the one that puts in the time. If you don't put the time in to set it up correctly, then do not be mad or upset when your business starts to do really well and then you don't have systems in place and you feel like you're over here, over there. You know what? That's exactly how I have been running the business for 11 years, well, 12 years, because we're doing it over 12 years now. So the last 4 months, we finally are getting systems in place. And it hurts, it's pain, it's time, but I know once it's done correctly, boom, we'll have
Yeah.
a great setup for our business. So, Gary,
And
this
it's
has been great.
more painful the longer you wait. Like had you done this in year two, or you it would have been a breeze, right?
Yeah, of
but
course. Of
yeah,
course, the law, again, it's like anything else. And that's why I love the acronym and the meaning and the way of the bison. Because if you run from a problem, at some point it will catch you. You
yeah,
can't outrun it. You can't outrun your problems. They don't go away. They only get bigger, bigger, and more contentious and more stressful. So again, learn how to build systems. Again, great interview, Gary. Great insight. How can people, if they're looking for a business coach, connect with you?
yeah. So my website is GaryMontalvo.com. You can also check out my podcast, TheOwnershipGame.com. I'm very Googleable. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, all the stuff. So just Gary Montalvo, and reach out, say hi. I'd love to talk.
Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, reach out to Gary, connect with him, and see if he could be a great asset to you and your business vision that is always changing, and it should be your journey and how you're looking to move forward in your business world. Now, again, we want to thank Mr. Jack Brown of Legacy Ventures for sponsoring this episode. And the authentic tip of this great interview, you heard Gary say, please take time and build systems. Don't wait. Don't be like Marcus. Don't try to do systems in year 12, right? Because it's difficult, arduous. It causes more gray hair. It causes a lot, takes energy away from you. It's just constantly making you feel like, is this ever going to happen? Is this ever going to get done? It will get done, but the longer you wait, the more time it takes. It's that simple. It's that simple. Again, my name is Marques Ogden. I am the host of the Get Authentic with Marcus show. Thanks for tuning in. Have a fantastic day.